Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Elizabeth Atkins.
And I'm Michael Hunter. By now, most people are aware of the catastrophic opioid epidemic that's been sweeping the country. This isn't like the widespread casual use of marijuana in the 70s or the crack cocaine explosion of the 80s. This frightening epidemic is the result of legal prescription painkillers, and it's affecting everyone.
Today, we're talking openly about the opioid epidemic with two people who have experience with it on a number of levels. Former Macomb County District Judge Linda Davis and David Clayton, Regional Director and Outreach Coordinator for Families Against Narcotics, and himself a person in long-term recovery. The nightmares that these two have seen and lived through show how these insidious drugs can sneak up on and destroy human lives, and how the whole stealthy process is abetted by pharmaceutical companies, insurance providers, and even some doctors and dentists who have been so careless and so prolific in writing prescriptions.
Judge Davis, Mr. Clayton, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Thank you for having us, Michael.
And you two obviously know one another.
We do. We met each other several years back. Dave came to a meeting that we had. I was really impressed with him. He was a natural speaker. I asked him if he wanted to get involved as a youth speaker for FAN, sharing his personal story. The next day he went with me, spoke to about 1,000 people, and that's how Dave came to our organization.
Yeah, and I think it was over 6 years ago. So I guess you want to label me a youth at that time, but it was a good time, and it was a great opportunity. And I never knew at that time that something like that would expand into what it is today. So I think all of us that work for FAN, even though she's my boss, it's more of like we're just all friends, and it's a really close-knit group of people.
Right.
That's awesome. So Judge Davis, let's back up a little. What placed you on the road to start Families Against Narcotics in the first place, where you ultimately met David?
Well, it was kind of a perfect storm. I started my career as a prosecutor, and it was my job to prosecute drug cases. I was assigned to our drug unit. And I'll be the first to tell you, I probably had one of the biggest stigmas about drug use of anybody I've ever met. I really thought people that used drugs or came in front of me for that reason were moral failures, that they came from bad families, had made very poor choices in life. And it's really amazing because I did this for a living, but I had no clue about addiction or how it involved people or how it touched their lives or their families. And then I took those same attitudes into being a judge. Every day, 80% of all the cases we handle are somehow drug or alcohol related, and yet we get very little education about the actual disease of addiction, and we have expectations of people in front of us that are just totally unrealistic. At the same time that I was in that position, I started hearing about drug court and started educating myself a little bit about the disease of addiction. And then in our neighborhood, we had several young people, two of them that died a month apart from one another, 17 and 18 years of age, that died of heroin. And it baffled all of us that were working in the system. We had never seen this before.
And you've had your own struggles.
I have, yep. I am in long-term recovery. September 23rd of 2013 was the last day that I had to use drugs and alcohol. I wasn't cut from the mold of a drug addict or an alcoholic. My family was as great as it can be. I was provided for. My parents loved me.
Michael, if I could just add to that, what David said about not fitting the mold, there isn't a mold. Nobody is born with a tattoo on their head that says this person is going to become an addict. And it's not anything anybody aspires to. It's a horrible lifestyle. It's the disease of addiction, and it affects all different socioeconomic, races, and ages. That does not discriminate.
And when you say you don't fit the mold, getting introduced to the drugs in the first place, how did that happen for you?
For me, it was, I had a friend that was selling prescription painkillers. And he's the one that had them. And I just said, hey, I want to know what they're all about. Because I saw people around me taking them. You got to think at this time, this is in the early to mid 2000s. So Oxycontin at that time is just flooding the streets. Prescription painkillers are being prescribed at an alarming rate. These are prescriptions prescribed by a doctor, you know. And then I started doing what I had to do to obtain these prescriptions, you know, and a lot of that is a lot of criminal behavior and doctor shopping. You got to think at this time there was no opiate crisis, there was no epidemic, there was no Families Against Narcotics, there was very, very little education behind these pills. You know, when we get prescriptions with warning labels from our pharmacist, it'll say things like may cause dizziness and drowsiness or do not operate heavy machinery. But if this pill would have been able to give me other warning labels and side effects, it would have said things like, you know, this is going to end up ruining your life. This is going to cause your mother just years and years of just sadness and grief, and she's going to cry herself to sleep every single night, you know, and you're just going to rip your family apart. I never would have thought that possible.
Well, we've got you all patched up. I'll give you a script for some ibuprofen, and that should help with the swelling.
Don't you think she might need something a little stronger?
You mean like this?
I don't think so. That's crazy.
Do you know that most prescription painkillers like Vicodin and Oxycontin are opiates, and they work just the same as heroin? And if not used sparingly, can lead to heroin addiction.
You know what? She's tough. We're just gonna stick to the ibuprofen.
Sounds good.
And Judge Davis, aside from seeing other lives impacted by drugs, you had a very personal story, which has probably fueled some of your own passion.
It has. I had my own experience where a child of mine became addicted after a knee surgery, and it really took us down a very dark, lonely road. And it was devastating from the very minute I tried finding treatment. I realized how the people that worked in this field were not compassionate at all. And I was called a pathetic mom, and my daughter was referred to as a junkie. And I realized, boy, this is what I've been doing all these years to people, is shaming and humiliating. And I knew that at that moment that if I ever got an opportunity, I was going to try to change things. And I think what I learned through my own family experience and through meeting young people like David, who didn't fit the mold of what I thought addiction looked like, I was able to start treating people more compassionately and offer them help that they needed rather than incarceration. We know that the average person, regardless of whether you incarcerate them for 3 days, 30 days, 3 years, or 30 years, if they are not provided treatment while they are incarcerated, they are going to leave jail or prison, and within 72 hours, they're right back to the same behavior again because they still have the disease. We haven't really resolved the problem. We've just wasted a whole lot of taxpayer money. And that really is what spurred me to get involved in this. And it was 3 years of really seeing how broken the system was and trying to figure out in my own mind what my role was in playing to fix that broken system. And that's really what has driven me for the last 14 years, is to not let anybody go through what I went through with my child when I was trying to find help. I look back at that and realize that in my own personal life, it was a blessing because it really made me a better judge, a better person.
And when you were going through it, David, you had some successes and then some not so successful times, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I bounced in and out for a very long time. You know, it was like 10 years. I mean, we talk about, you know, the pain. I mean, it was like 10 years of like literal hell. And just the families and it's really, I take myself out of it sometimes, and I see the devastation that it causes other families because I know what I've done to my family.
And when you think about the addiction cycle, I'll call it, does the person who is addicted, do they recognize that they have the addiction?
Yeah, and I couldn't do anything about it. And because I had to keep using, especially with opiate addiction, is you have to continuously to keep using in order to not feel sick. And it's just this disease of addiction that just tells you that everything is all going to be okay. You just need to get one more. One more, and then we can go to treatment. One more, and then this. It's always one more. And it's just, I can't go and function without the use of that drug. You know, getting out of jail and saying, I'm going to manage it this time. This time I'm going to manage it. I'm only going to use every other day or once a week. And then that's the cycle of addiction, this progressive, incurable, and fatal disease of your brain.
Right, and I think that what is really important to understand is that most people, by the time they're really in the throes of addiction, they're feeling pretty hopeless. You know, they've tried to stop numerous times on their own and they just don't think they can. And they don't know an avenue. Finding help is not easy. And so when your mind is all messed up to begin with and you're not thinking clearly, to have to navigate a very complex system.
And so what is that it that makes one come out of it?
Getting off of them is almost near impossible without a team together that's going to really help you through that process. I think it's when somebody sees in you hope that you forgot existed. They see that quality in you that you had at one time in your life that you have lost and you've lost sight of it. We try to provide the hope that you forgot was there and get you back to the life that you wanted to live.
And I think that's the end-all question people ask, well, what made it stick? And I think that it's different for everybody. You know, a lot of people have, they always say, well, what was your rock bottom? You know, well, my rock bottom is different from the next person. You know, sometimes people getting kicked out of their house for the first time is their rock bottom, or finding themselves in the back of a police car or in a jail cell is their rock bottom, or overdosing multiple. You know, it's what is your rock bottom, really? And, you know, I think that what made it stick for me is just kind of getting wrapped up in a community of recovery, you know, and I went through a drug court. It wasn't Linda's drug court. You know, and I found the judge that was my drug court judge that was just like they see something in you. They give you that structure, and I think that specialty courts are the most amazing thing ever nowadays.
Yeah, and the cliche of hit your bottom, you don't have to wait until a person is at their bottom and in jail and doing all of that. If you can provide an intervention and hope before it ever gets there, you can have real success with raising a bottom. Most people don't find treatment because they don't know how, and so we need to make that really easy for them. And that's what we've tried to do through some of our programming with Families Against Narcotics, is you want help, just ask for it, and we're there to make that happen for you. And when you do that, it's amazing how many people flood the doors asking for help.
And speaking of asking for help, we have people who go to see their doctor and they're in actual pain. And they want that pain to go away. They want it to be alleviated. So what do we say to them with the knowledge we have today to make sure they're not going to necessarily go down the road of addiction, but they want this pain to go away?
There are a lot of non-narcotic pain medications. If they're used in combination, that can be very effective. There's actually a form that you can fill out that was legislatively passed that allows you to refuse narcotic drugs as part of your treatment. And I would indicate to people, this is your life, it's your future. Push what you know is good for yourself and refuse to take them. And then rather than trying to rid your body of pain, you need to learn how to manage that pain. And unfortunately, in America, we like quick fixes. And so changing that mindset is part of what the education should be all about. Americans use 90% of all opiate pain medication produced in the world, and we only make up 5% of the population. Dentists in the United States use opiates for routine dental procedures, a tooth being pulled, a wisdom tooth being extracted. We are the only country in the world that prescribed narcotics, opiate narcotics, for dental procedures. And so it is really re-educating the public about what these drugs do to you.
It's interesting you say that, because I wouldn't have thought that the dentists were on the list. So are they listening, the doctors, when you have your time with them? Are you getting good feedback like, hey, we get it now?
We are making a difference. I did a presentation for a group of dentists, and one of the dentists got really angry with me and told me, you know, I'm a judge, what do you know about dental work? You have no right to tell me how to treat my patients. And I ran into him a year or two later, and he actually thanked me and said the next day when he went to write that script, he couldn't do it. And he told me that they've reduced the number of pills they've written since my talk by over 1 million. So yes, they do listen, but they need to really be able to put a face to those statistics, because you can listen to statistics all day, but when you see someone that your actions have personally affected, you can't walk away from that very easily. And this is affecting real people. We're not just numbers.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Wellness Center has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan.
They get a chance to know that somebody's on their team.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel. We feel like I'm the only one. But that is so untrue.
Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery.
Working through my problems and seeing that I'm not the only one that has to cope has really brought me to a place where now it's okay to talk about it.
Because if you keep stuff to yourself, you can't overcome. We all need one another.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
Tyler, is everything okay? Yeah, Grandma, everything's fine.
And so how long ago did Families Against Narcotics start?
About 14 years ago.
So that's a pretty good piece of time now. So,
It is,
and you're
it
seeing
is.
the benefits of it.
So really what we did when we started FAN 14 years ago, we had a community that bound together to make a difference. And then over those years, we just continue to grow and we want to erase the stigma of addiction through education and awareness. Excuse me, and that's a lot of what I do.
Our number one goal, I would say, is to erase the stigma of addiction, because if you start with that, stigma stops everything. It stops doctors from treating people with addiction. It stops people from asking for help. It stops families from talking publicly about this because of the shame and humiliation that goes with it. It is the number one thing that if we could get people, one person at a time, to start realizing that addiction is not a choice, it's a disease, and that it is a curable disease, then we really are able to open up the doors and people are more willing to come in and ask for help.
So the title of our show today is The Opioid Epidemic and How It Snuck Up on Us. Do you believe that it snuck up on us? And if so, how did it?
I do. I think it was driven by pharmaceutical companies, and that we were a nation that was being prescribed pain medication without any education to go with it to tell us how addicted these drugs were. We thought they were safe because doctors were writing them, and doctors thought they were safe because that's what pharmaceutical companies taught them. I know when I first got involved in this 14 years ago, I just thought it was our community problem, that something had happened in our city that caused this to explode. Somebody brought in bad drugs or whatever. I had no idea that it was a planned, absolute attack by the pharmaceutical companies. And so as I started educating myself and speaking across the state about this, it didn't take long to realize that we were just part of something that was much, much bigger. Because it's a silent epidemic, people are ashamed to talk about it. I don't think we were seeing the magnitude of the numbers of families that were really being affected by it.
And David, you agree that it snuck up on us as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And really with opiate addiction, of what we hear nowadays, with starting with prescription painkillers for a legitimate reason or a non-legitimate reason, and then going into what it was the Oxycontin, and then it was the heroin, and then we're sniffing heroin, and then we're injecting heroin. And people are like, how did that process even happen? And it happens faster than others.
And today, you're a retired judge.
I am.
And you're working with Families Against Narcotics full-time. You've done a lot of public speaking across the nation. You've worked with organizations like the FBI, Girl Scouts, and you also received the Humanitarian Award in 2015.
Right.
So tell me how Families Against Narcotics has grown and expanded its reach since 14 years ago.
So we had a very humble beginning. We started in the basement of a church, and we're still there, to be honest with you. And it was just a group of family and friends that were coming together to talk about this, and some community leaders. And it just started to grow. Like I said, the first 5 years were pretty painful, but little by little it did happen. And people started paying attention. When the death rate started raising, all of a sudden it was like we were the go-to group to start educating people about this. And then about 3 years ago, we saw a program out on the East Coast that was started by a police chief out there called the PARI program. And the police chief, it was a very small community, got sick and tired of watching his neighborhood kids die and having to go tell their parents that their children had passed away, and decided to open his doors and let people come in and just ask for help without fear of incarceration. And so we saw that and thought, wow, what a great idea to partner with police, because that really starts to break down those barriers and those stigmas about addiction. And so we called our program Hope Not Handcuffs. We started out partnering with 23 police departments. We are up to almost 90 police departments right now, and that's growing daily, and we have placed over 4,000 people into treatment by simply saying all you have to do is walk in and say, hey, I'm sick, I want help. But Michael, the most important part of that program is not only are we providing help for the person seeking recovery, we also provide help through their family. We are the only statewide agency that, for no cost, provides a family coach to help walk your family through this process and give them the support and help that they need. So where we don't just put you in a facility for 20 days, think you're going to come out cured, because this is a complex disease. And a lot of what we do through the family coaching and the peer coaching program are very inexpensive programs, but provide a long continuum of care that goes way beyond you just going into an intensive outpatient program and coming back and being expected to live a productive life. It just doesn't work that way.
So when we think about this disease, it's not just an individual disease, it's a family disease?
Absolutely it is. When a family is going through this, we become as sick as our child. We become addicted to them. Our whole life revolves around that child and fixing them. That's what we do as parents. We help fix the problems of our children. We do that from the time they're born. They're hungry, we feed them. They need to be changed, we change them. And then all of a sudden addiction comes into the equation, and parents are really ill-equipped. We used to say, oh, just kick them out and let them fend for their own, but that's not the appropriate way to deal with this. We just need to learn to love our children a different way. It's a more hardline approach in drawing boundaries, but you can do that compassionately and with lots and lots of love. And that's why we developed the family coaching program. It's something I would have given my right arm to have when I was going through this, because I had lots of questions and there were no answers. And there was no one that I felt safe to ask those to. And there's nobody better to ask, just like with recovery, there's no better person to ask about what am I going to go through, where's my life headed, than someone that's walked in your path before.
I mean, who wants to ever let anybody know that my family's not perfect, my child's not perfect, my kid's dying? It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to reach out, because the second you reach out, that your pain becomes meaningful, and then someone else can say, oh my gosh, I never knew that you were going through that. Well, I never wanted to tell you, but this is what I was going through. And
are there any quick tips you have for families, like rules that a family can start with when they want to help their loved one that may be struggling?
Yeah, if I would just say one thing overall, it's like educate yourself. Don't be ignorant and blinded to the fact that this could happen to you. I've never talked to a parent that thought this could happen to them. We all thought we were bulletproof, good families, go to church every Sunday, eat family dinners together, and yet it still can happen to you. But educating yourself and arming yourself with the information you need so that, number one, you can be proactive in the involvement in your child's life and know what to watch for, but also if this does happen in your lifetime with one of your loved ones or family members, that you know what to do, that you're equipped with knowledge and resources and a plan. We tell kids when they're going out, and if everybody starts drinking, you should have a plan of how am I going to get out of that. Parents need to have a plan on what they're going to do if this creeps into their lives, because we are not close to being through this epidemic yet.
So just trust your gut as a parent, whether it be a mother or father or grandparent. Just trust your gut, educate yourself, know that you're not alone. Know that there's resources available for you.
She's still on the pain meds from her fall. She won't even talk to us anymore. She spends most of the day up in her room. And when she does come downstairs, she just wants to sleep. I don't know, I'm just really scared, I'm scared she could be addicted.
Thank you for joining us today as we examined our country's growing opioid epidemic. If you'd like to learn more about this or any mental health issue, please visit us at myhealthymind.com, follow us on Twitter at myhealthymind, or on Facebook. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it.
Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to see more of My Healthy Mind, be sure to click subscribe. Are there any topics you'd like to see discussed on My Healthy Mind? Be sure to leave a comment below and let us know.